Hello and welcome. My name is Darren Sadge, and I'm very pleased and excited to be here with you today. This last summer, I had really kind of an interesting experience with this young attorney friend of mine, and he had this situation that came up in his practice where an intern that he'd been working with decided to leave the practice. And it seemed like everything was going well, and he didn't understand why the intern was concerned about leaving. So he was thinking about or contemplating what the situation had been like prior to that, and realized that this intern was in his practice during the time of the virus epidemic, and that during that time he had shut down his office for a couple of months and set up a program that was following really the guidelines to make sure there was safety for his staff and also anybody that was coming into the practice. He found out that this intern's wife was about 9 months pregnant, and so he thought, well, maybe that was the reason why he decided that he needed to to take some extra time off. And prior to his leaving the practice, he went around to everyone and told them how much he'd enjoyed working with them, and that it was going to be very difficult for him to leave. And it sounded like it was quite a cheerful goodbye. Nonetheless, he ended up leaving the practice. And after he left the practice, this labor board the state labor board contacted his office and said that this grievance had been filed against the practice, and it had been filed by this intern. And so the attorney was really, surprised at that and shocked about it. So he tried to get a hold of this intern to find out what had happened, and the intern wouldn't return his calls. So he really couldn't, find out what the problem was. And so he was asking me what could he do? How could it be worked with this situation, which would have been less frustrating, and definitely he was angered by what this intern had done. And initially my response was, I don't know that I would have treated them any differently than, or understood the situation any differently than he did, and that it seemed justified. But, and I think I also said something to the effect that, well, this intern's reaction had more to do with his vision or perception of what was going on than anything that the attorney had done or not done. And yet that seemed a little bit weak. It felt a little bit like there's got to be a better way to approach this. And so I started to contemplate, well, what might that be? And that evening, about, I think it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, I had this insight, which is kind of typical of when I have a question and I try to figure out what the answer is. It's helpful for me to go to sleep and basically inquire. And then often, to my chagrin, about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning is usually when I get the answers. So now I have a notebook available to just write down the the insights that I have. In this particular case, what came to me was that the attorney would have to have an entirely different perspective, an expanded perspective of how to deal with a situation, and that how he had looked at it before really wasn't going to help help in this particular situation. And so I started doing the what if, what if the attorney was coming to this situation with a sense of peace, a sense of joy, a sense of wholeness, a sense of nothing really missing And is that possible? And it is possible, and I know that from my own experience, in that some 32 years ago, I met this meditation master from India and had this incredible shift in my own perception, an absolute transformation in how I viewed myself, and also how I experienced the world and people in it. The experience was almost otherworldly. It was very difficult to explain it, because I felt this like wave after wave of this ecstatic sense of well-being and wholeness and peace that was beyond anything that I'd ever experienced before. And it was overwhelming. I mean, I was literally in tears for probably 2 or 3 hours. I just could not believe that this was possible. And yet I was experiencing it, and not just knowing it, but literally living it and feeling it. Probably one of the most palpable and powerful parts of it was a sense of unconditional and unlimited love. It was like, wow, this is possible. Because prior to that, I'd always had the sense that somehow I need to become worthy of that. I needed to demonstrate something that would indicate that, hey, okay, you can have this. And then here I was, sitting in this place of, it's already there. And I am love. I am peace. I am this joy that's right there and always has been. And what I found out later is what had happened actually is I'd received what's called Shaktipat. And what Shaktipat is a spiritual awakening into an understanding and experience of your own divine nature. And that when that happens, there is this enormous shift in your understanding and experience of who you are. Because now you are source. You are coming from that place. That your divine nature is actually opened up. And you are experiencing that directly. So it's no wonder that there's this amazing shift in how you feel and experience the world. It was as if everything that I'd ever been looking for before was right here, right now, and I was completely full, autonomous, needed nothing. And so now I was approaching the world from the perspective of, I got it all, right here, right now, under all circumstances. Nothing had to change other than this total shift in perception. And so what do you do with that? Then you're a vehicle literally to share the abundance that you have, that you're feeling right now. I guess I might want to back up a little bit here in terms of explaining what this Shaktipat, or what this awakening is, what actually happens. And in my particular case, I was in the presence of this meditation master. And what I understood later was that when you're in the presence of somebody like that, who is an awakened being, that their light literally can awaken your light. And that this sense of your total wellness and your total magnificence has always been there. And it's just that it's been in a dormant stage or an unawakened state. But that can be awakened. And when that happens, it's like, this is a whole new ballgame. It's a whole new world. You're no longer trying to extract your happiness, your peace, your joy from something in the world, whether it's a possession or whether it's a career or something you do in your career. It's like a given. So now you're coming from that place, which is, a radical shift. It's what I've found too over this last 30-some years since I had that awakening experience, is that it's possible for me to serve as a vehicle for that grace bestowing energy to allow other people or to support other people in this awakening. And I know that it's not Darren Sadge, but I know that I can be a vehicle for that as a result of experiences that I've had with people, and how that manifests for them, how they experience that is uniquely suited to them. It varies tremendously. They can have, I've had people talk about feeling balls of light in their hand or shafts of light, or feeling this one woman talked about that she felt this love from the tip of her toes to the top of her head. And she said that she wanted to stay there forever. And so it was really so sweet to just be, part of that. But it can manifest in, dramatic ways. Like in my particular case, it was literally life-shifting and changing. But what I found is that regardless, when you begin to make that kind of a shift, just begin to see a piece of it, then you can't turn around, and you don't need to. But you can continually uncover more and more of that. So from my experience, it's that I can live in that space more and more of the time. And that seems to be the case. So that is the essence of what this program is about today, is about you awakening into this experience. And I know without question, once I experienced it, there was absolute certainty that it's also within every other person. It just is. I mean, I can't tell you why I know that, other than it's just obvious. And it is by far and away the most incredible gift that a human being can receive. I mean, even if you just think about it, the magnificence of your own being right here. And we keep chasing this something out here. I played that game, and I'll talk about that more later, but it's like always trying to find something out there. And we got it all right here. And once you open that door, then your world is completely changed. And it will never be the same again. If you want to expand that, then that's part of this process. We continually try to find ways and do different things and have these kinds of gatherings to support that feeling and experience. But it is revolutionary, or certainly was for me. When I look back at my life prior to this awakening, I mean, it was totally different. Even as a young child, I was the perfectionist, the model of, how to do it perfectly. And even, I'll tell a story about when I have a twin brother, and my dad one time, when we were about 12, 13 years old, he wanted us to repaint the whole outside of the house. And it was a red brick house, so we painted the whole outside red, and then we were supposed to go around each one of the bricks, and paint the white lines in. So here I am, I'm Mr. Meticulous Perfectionist, and this is right up my alley. So I'm just, very carefully going around each one of these bricks. My twin brother, on the other hand, is not oriented that way at all. He's kind of like, well, whatever. So he's just slopping the white paint around the bricks, and my dad comes over and says, we can't have that. We can't have you just, messing up this whole thing. So you need to leave. So here I am all day, just very carefully going around. And here's my brother off, playing and having a great time. I think I'm the winner. And my brother for sure is the winner. I mean, he's just doing his thing. Now, later on, that didn't necessarily work out so great for him, because there were times when he, certainly wasn't acknowledged for just, not paying attention. And often I was. but it's still this, it's still a small part of what I experienced in this, this expanded kind of understanding. The same thing occurred when I was, or in terms, I had the same kind of orientation towards grades. So if I would get an A, then I would expect to get an A+. Or one particular situation was when I was applying to get into dental school. I remember I took this test, and I ended up getting 100% on the test. And I came back and told my wife about that, and she said, "Wow, that's really cool. You got 100%." And I said, "Well, yeah, but I'm not going to remember that, that information, It's like, what in the world? I mean, how far does this go? Same thing happened like if I was a pretty good basketball player. And so in high school, if I would get 10 points on a game and then get maybe 15 rebounds, well, the next time I'd want to get 15 points and 25, whatever, rebounds. But it was the same sort of orientation that just went, continued. I ended up going on to college, graduated from college, and then went to dental school. Came back from dental school and practicing in my hometown. It was when I came back there, the practice was very successful. It grew very quickly. So we had the finances to do most anything we wanted to do. We had the new house, the new car, opportunities to go on vacations, all those kinds of things that money could buy. And it looked like from the outside, and I also had 3 really beautiful children and an incredible wife. She was very supportive, my best friend. We just had a great time raising our kids together. And when I look back at that, I mean, I was living the American dream. So it's like, how in the why, what's that all about? But there was still somehow an emptiness in that experience. It sounds almost, well, even when I look at it, it's like, it sounds crazy, but that was the truth. And when I looked around, there were a whole lot of other people playing the same game. That was never quite enough. You watch professional athletes, like as an example, professional football players. 2% of the college players actually make it into the pros. But then you get into the pros, and then you want to be all pro. Well, what about, the guy that was the all pro twice? Well, then you got to be all pro 3 times. It's endless, it just keeps going on. Or I noticed people in the area where I was practicing dentistry. Later on, we actually moved to another community. This was in the Vail Valley of Colorado. There are people there that have more money than you can believe. I mean, they have a home there, they have one in Bermuda, they have one wherever, and they travel and do and buy, the most expensive cars. But it's still this crazy game of never enough. You may have heard of the actor Jim Carrey. And Jim Carrey has really become very interested in a lot of the work that we're doing and trying to understand consciousness and where does joy really come from. And he's got it all. I mean, he's got all the money, the fame, the fortune, everything that you might think life is all about. And yet I listened to a talk that he was giving at a college graduation, and he said, "I wish that everybody could have what I have, and then understand that that's not it. That's not what's going to really make you happy or where you're going to find satisfaction." So it's the word's getting out, I guess. In my particular case, that lack of satisfaction, I think, is what really drew this opportunity for me to meet this meditation master. Because otherwise, I really wouldn't have had any interest in necessarily doing that, which is a entirely another story. It's like how I actually ended up going there. It was like all of a sudden I'm on an airplane flying out to this ashram to meet this meditation guru from India. And I'm getting on the airplane, I'm going, what in the hell's going on? I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, here I am, this logical, linear kind of oriented dentist, and I'm flying out to meet a guru from India. And yet, I've told the rest of the story when that happened, when I was willing to trust that and do that. It was life-changing. Absolutely life-changing. So, I wanted to speak about something too that is kind of a story that maybe helps tie all this together. And there was this monastery, this Buddhist monastery in Thailand years and years ago, and it was called the Monastery of the Golden Buddha. And there was actually this huge big statue, this golden statue inside this monastery. And the people there, the monks and the local people, found out that this army was coming through that area. And when they were going to come through, they were worried, well, they were going to steal or pillage this golden Buddha. And so they wanted to protect it. So they tried to design a plan. Well, how can we protect it? So what they decided they would do is they covered the whole golden statue with plaster and cement so that it would look like a stone Buddha. So the army came through, and sure enough, they took one look at the stone Buddha, or what they thought was a stone Buddha, and just and left it. So many, many years later, everyone had really even had forgotten that the gold was underneath, and that this was it wasn't really a stone Buddha. But there was a young monk that was meditating in front of the golden, or the statue, and all of a sudden a piece of stone fell off the hand of this Buddha, and it exposed the gold underneath. And so he got real excited. He said, wow, he said, there's gold under there. So he went back to his community and also the other monks and said, let's see what we can do here. So they chipped all the plaster and stone off, and here they exposed this beautiful statue. So what's the metaphor here? And the metaphor is that we start out our life as the golden Buddha. When we begin, and that this is kind of something that came up in some of the previous talks, but I know that the core essence of who we are, we know when we come here, but then it does get covered up, and it gets covered up with all of our programming, what teachers and coaches and ministers and friends and everybody tells us about life, and then all of a sudden that natural, beautiful essence gets covered up. So something has to happen so that you expose the gold underneath. And for my particular case, it was going to meet this meditation master. It seems that for lots of people, it requires some type of almost tragic event. If you lose a spouse, or you lose a child, or you lose a career, or something, usually it is required to sort of shake up your reality. And you go, wait a minute, this isn't working. Let me go over here and look deeper, look someplace else. And I think that is what draws that source or the answer to us. At least it felt that way to me, and seems to be the case for other people. So, one other story I wanted to kind of talk about, or kind of description of this process, and that's that there is a YouTube video, and it's called that I listened to not too long ago, and it's called Finding Joe, And Finding Joe is about Joseph Campbell. I don't know if any of you have seen this. And but he was quite the philosopher and studied a lot of cultures all around the world. And he studied the American Indian culture, and I know the Aborigines, and then studies stories from the Bible, myths, all this, from all these different cultures. And he found one central theme, and he called it the hero's journey. And the hero's journey was depicted or shown in this huge big circle, and at the bottom, he described it as separation. And the separation is separating from, our core self. That golden, once again, is like the golden Buddha. So we separate from that and we start moving up the circle to the top. And at the top is what he described as initiation. And the initiation could be the breakthrough, something that exposes this inner knowing and this inner sense of who we really are. And then you come down to the bottom, and it's called the return. Well, the return is returning back home, realizing that place for the very first time in an entirely different way, in a different perception. And you also can share your experience with family, with others that are interested in that experience. So you come back to that place. So how did this particular shift change my life? And I have to say that obviously it's pretty dramatic, because now I approach a lot of life just from a place of abundance, in the sense of real peace and joy. I find that times, I'm just hanging out, and this joy is self-generating. It just comes bubbling up. I'm just, walking around like, I don't know, happy guy, and there's really no particular reason, but it's just delightful, because I don't have to now extract it from the world. I don't have to get it from a relationship or from anything else. It's just there. Also notice that when I'm in nature, that everything has a different quality. I think part of that is because I'm not striving to go someplace. I'm here and present, so I can really see it and experience it. Some of the examples would be, in the springtime, enjoying just a beautiful green, fresh world that's starting to, express itself. Or in the fall, the beautiful colors in the fall time, for that fall experience. But it's just definitely a matter of being, I think, more present to experience those things. One thing that seems to be very, very powerful and a total shift is this sense of oneness with other people. That when I look over there now and look into your eyes, I look past whatever your story is, and it feels like I can relate soul to soul. I see you in me and me in you, and it's just one hell of a trip. It's just so amazing to actually see that presence over there, but it's there, and I didn't know it was there until I discovered it here. Before I'd left the ashram, this friend that had introduced me to this meditation master asked me if I would go and look for the statue of Martin Luther King and write down the inscription that it said at the bottom. And it said, "I believe in the brotherhood of man." And it's like, man, I really, really got that. Because it's like that is that incredible connection that we have. When you can look over there and see that same presence within another human being, and they see it in you, it's it's beyond words, and it is just the truth. It's the truth of who we really are. And I've often thought, what if we were like that all the time? What if in our daily interactions with people, every time you looked over there, you saw that and experienced that? I mean, all you want to do is skip down the road together. I mean, wow. I mean, just play. I mean, there's nothing magnificent you need to do other than life's magnificence, and you get to share it with, with all these almost like soulmates. They almost at times now I sort of laugh at the concept of a soulmate. It's like, hell, everybody over there is a soulmate. I mean, what are we looking for? It's kind of like, and yeah, it's a wonderful way to connect. The another thing that's been very powerful for me is this feeling of unconditional and unlimited love. Man, I'd never ever experienced that before, because it was always conditional, or I had to somehow prove worthiness, the word that I was worthy of love, and then to step into that space or that understanding that I am that. And it's a subtle kind of difference, but it's profound. It's not creating it somehow. It's just living. It just comes up. You are worthy. I am worthy of this divine love. And man, that was entirely different, because prior to that, it was like I was always trying to prove that I was somehow valuable and I was worthy of that love. One of the things that I noticed too with this sense of wholeness and well-being was that challenging situations really take on an entirely different way of approaching them. As an example with that attorney, if he was coming from this place of absolute wholeness and peace and joy, I mean, it wouldn't make any difference how the intern responded, positively or negatively. It's sort of like you just kind of like being more, I think some of the other speakers talked about being the observer. You just are observing what's going on, and how people react is not, it's really not up to you. And you don't have to worry about that too much, because, man, you feel fine no matter what. And because you're not dependent on their behavior for your happiness. I had a really challenging situation for me about 8 years ago. My wife of 47 years died of cancer. And for the first couple of years, I mean, it was hell. It was just every place I looked, I was reminded of her and the relation, this beautiful relationship that it seemed to be, gone. I can remember times when I would see a couple walking down the street holding hands, and it was like, man, it was awful. Or I would be driving home at night, and often I would call to see, if I needed to pick up something on the way home, or just to let her know I was coming home, and then all of a sudden realize she's not there. Or maybe at home at night, and I'd reach over and expect her to be there, and she's not there. Boy, some of those were tough times. But what really, I think, helped me through this was that experience of that unconditional and unlimited love that I could tap into. Because I don't know that without that, I don't know how I would have managed through that situation. Certainly had a lot of family around that helped in that regard. But having that's still that sense of a loving presence was incredibly helpful to get through that. Something else that I noticed and experienced as a result of her passing was that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now, in the bigger picture, if she was still alive, because I would have continued to stay with her and indefinitely. And it actually ended up freeing me to be able to do this kind of work, and so it was a blessing in that particular case. Trying to think of some other. I mean, they're just a myriad of different things, because the shift in perception, and I look back, is just like night and day. But those are probably the most significant ones that I can think about right now. So what I would like to do now is to lead everybody into a meditation, and the meditation is designed for you to either awaken into this experience of your own divine presence, and I'll be serving as a vehicle for that. I know that Darren Sadge isn't the one that's making this happen, but I do know that I can serve as a vehicle for that energy to move through me and into you in a way that can help you with that. There's probably, I'd be shocked if there aren't a lot of people here that have already had some type of a very powerful awakening experience. But what I would say is what I've noticed is that there's always an opportunity to expand and to know and go deeper, especially in the sense of that heart resonance, the heart sense of who you are in that space. Is really endless and can be expanded. Yeah, what I have noticed in the past is that everyone there are lots of different reactions to this process, and that I've had people talk about feeling balls of light, holding balls of light in their hand, or shafts of light in their hand, or feeling a wave of light and peacefulness that comes over them. One of the things I think that's helpful is to try not to have an expectation about what you're going to experience, which is sometimes a little easier said than done. But it feels like the more open you can be, it just gives you the freedom to experience whatever's best for you. So the meditation will be about 20 minutes long, and then at the end of the meditation, you'll have an opportunity to share your experience if you'd like to. And then after that, I'd like to spend a little bit of time looking at how do we sustain and maintain this experience going forward. But let's go ahead and we'll start the meditation. And if everyone wants just to get comfortable, find a stable, upright position. Let's begin by taking some long, slow, deep breaths. So breathe in deep. And breathe out long. And breathe in deep. And breathe out long. And just kind of do a quick scan of your body and look for any areas of tightness or tension. Just breathe into those areas and let that tension go. Well, let's begin to take our attention into our neck and shoulders. Just let your shoulders drop. Allow those areas to relax. Now bring your attention into your arms, your upper arms, your lower arms, and your hands. Bring your attention to your back, your chest, your abdomen, your hips, your upper legs, and your knees, your lower legs, and your feet. Allow your feet, the energy in your feet, to drop down into Mother Earth, Mother Gaia. Feel that loving presence within Mother Earth. Bring that loving energy back up through your central channel or up through your spine, up into your heart space. Allow that space to expand. After it's filled that heart space, allow that loving energy to move up through your neck, up through the top of your head, out the top of your head, where this energy mingles with the divine loving presence. Allow that energy to move back down into the heart space. Once again, fill in your heart space. Now begin to watch your thoughts. Observe your thoughts like clouds in the sky. Just watch them. Just let them pass by. Pay more attention to the blue sky behind the clouds. That incredible depth. That infinite space. Now you can take the vision of a stone falling into a lake. Follow that stone as it just very, very slowly sinks to the bottom of the lake. Where the stone rests in the deep, peaceful, quiet, still space at the bottom of the lake. If thoughts come up, just bring yourself back to your natural breath. Now we'll hold the intention for you to awaken into an experience of your own divine nature. and to expand your experience of this beautiful divine presence within. Now we'll meditate. You want to take a couple of long, slow, deep breaths. And stretch your body a bit. Just slowly bring yourself back into the room. Just take your time. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. How we doing? Anybody like to share their experience?
I'll share and then I'll share the mic. Amazing. Thank you. Your energy is just beautiful. But I'm observing some things in the room, and it's interesting because I saw first this huge light version of yourself in this corner. And I was like, that's interesting. And then you notice something on the other side. There's this huge light version of yourself over here. It was like two really tall, clear white Darrens on opposite sides of the room. And then I noticed this blue ray. It was almost like this blue ray that was just fanning out from your heart. And it started really thin. And then it started to turn and, wind. And it was reflecting off of these two versions of yourself, starting to kind of cover the room. So I just wanted to bring that up because it was a really cool vision. I don't know if I've seen that in your sessions before, but yeah, rock on. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe this wasn't your intention, but when you first started out, I was pissed. Things started coming up, and I mean anger towards some things people have done that have been very vicious and very cruel. And I started crying because I didn't want to let them go. And there are current things that happened 2-3 days ago, some very horrible, horrible things. And I don't really know where to go from that. I did get out of that, but I don't know if that was something that came up so I could let it go. I just guess.
Yeah, well, that's definitely my sense of it. And because, that's how then you access that space underneath, the loving space underneath. If that's out on the surface, then you can't see past it. So, that can definitely be a gift.
Okay.
And it's been my experience that it's that's one of the first steps, and as a gift. Right.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
That was really beautiful. What I experienced is something I never experienced before, which you facilitated, and that was bringing me to my original divine blueprint. And I only know that because I asked, what am I looking at? And that's what I was given. So I saw an eye that was very clear. And I see a lot of faces and eyes in meditation anyway, in my third eye. And so I asked whose eye it was, and then they said, it's your eye. Go in your eye. And so I went into the center of it. And then it was all bright diamond light after going through a spiral black nothingness with lots of white dots. And then when I went through that, I was, what was floating around in front of me was a design that was diamond white light with lines and dots and things. And I asked what it was, and they said, that's your spark. That's your original spark before your creation. And then I just got to sit with it. And, you know, and because I was so taken far away from my mind and in that place of no thing, I was able to, and in my heart, because of you and your heart, I was able to sit in it in awe without freaking out or crying or whatever, like I might now. And it was so amazing, the feeling that, you know, I had felt no pain and just complete bliss. And I could just sit in awe of it, and then I could be curious about it. And I asked, you know, what's happening now? What's gonna happen now? What's happening now? Where are we gonna go now? And what I was getting was that it just kept expanding.
Wow.
You know, out. And I could hear noises in the room and things like that, but it didn't matter. Anyway, it was, I felt when I was asking that, I felt the guidance I was getting was that there was a reprogramming or resyncing or integrating with my own physical body and all my cells, what I was aligning with. And to just sit and allow that. And that's what you created today, though. You created that for me today by being present and in your heart.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's great. Anyone else?
Darren, that was incredibly beautiful, and wow, I had almost the identical experience to Alaya, and it was really crazy because, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily describe it the same way. I felt like it was clearing through my body, and then I went through, like in my heart, I could feel like having this weird something in my throat. It's like bugging me. I'm like, okay, so why am I clearing? Am I clearing for everybody here? Who knows? Because that happens all the time. So it's clearing, and then it was like releasing. I could feel it go down, and then I like journeyed through my heart, and I knew it was your light. I was like, your light was like the vision, you know, to be able to go all the way. And it was the same thing. It went to the God spark, and when I was told that, I was like, this is your original spark, and we're reminding you, and we're going to bring it up to your life, you know, into all of your life, because it was still that little bit of human dialogue going. What's going to happen from here, or where are you going to go, or what are you going to do, and these little, you know, and it was like organizing that and just bringing me up to, and at the end it was so, which is so, it's so bright even right now. It's like crazy clear, bright around. I mean, it's so huge energy, and wow, I mean, your light just takes you on a journey to our own light. I mean, it's just beautiful. So, oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah,
You're
thank
amazing.
you.
I love you. Thank you.
So that was like basically the amazing moment was after some time of sitting in meditation and sort of having my mind be observer of like what's going on in my vision, you know, or what information I might be getting or whatever. Suddenly, after sitting there, I had a beautiful faceted gemstone in the shape of an eye, like land right here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had that same color, like this beautiful magenta, plum purple light over my shoulders. And I realized then that I had, you know, a opening in my vision, my third eye vision or whatever you might call it. And I know that this is connected to something past life for me, where I was suffering abuse from being in being used in that way for my inner vision.
anyway, I feel like that's a connection. But after that, I was able, then it became like a doorway where I could see through. And it was like a TV, in the shape of that eye. And I could see, and then it kind of brought me into a place of seeing this beautiful angelic light. I'm curious if it's so many similarities with the people that just spoke. It was amazing angelic light, rays and patterns of diamonds, and it would sort of morph. And it was just last night I picked for my oracle deck at the end of the night. I was super exhausted, and I picked the awakening card. And I was like, yeah, I'll try this again in the morning. I put it away. Anyway, all of that's very profound for me, and I thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I'd like to talk about now is, how do we sustain and maintain this experience? And certainly, once I came back from the ashram, it was like, man, I'm not going to lose this, because it was such a miraculous shift. And probably the one tool that I've used continuously over the last 32 years is I've meditated pretty much every day, and it's just a way for me to still the mind, transcend the mind, and move into that space, that deep sense of peace and rest. And there's one of the meditation masters that I've learned from said every day, take a broom and sweep your heart. And it kind of feels like that's what I do in meditation. It's just sweep away, and it's good to do it every day. Otherwise, as you probably know, a lot of stuff accumulates, gets pretty dusty and dirty in there. So it's definitely a tool that I use. And within the meditation itself, there are lots of techniques. The breathing that almost all of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. If you're kind of out of sorts, just take a couple of long, slow, deep breaths. It's amazing how that quiets things down, certainly helps me come back into the present moment. The watching the thoughts is a great way to also quiet the mind. If you can watch them, it's almost like a little kid. If you're watching the kid, he'll behave, but if you're not, he won't. So it's sort of like watch the thoughts, and they have a tendency to kind of dissolve or at least slow down. So it's definitely another one of those parts of the meditation, I think, that are helpful. When you look back, I like to visualize often that space behind the clouds. The clouds are the thoughts, but that deep space behind is where I want to rest. I want to be able to rest in that space. Something too I want to kind of reiterate is about the thoughts and watching the thoughts is that often I'll ask myself the question, like basically, who am I? And maybe even more importantly, who am I not? I'm not my thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And if I'm not, then what am I? And what else is there? What else is there is the witness, this watching, observing presence that's kind of back here, but it's where I want to be. I want to rest in that place. I've heard the phrase, what you're looking for is what's looking. It's kind of like gives you that sense of back here, observing what's going on and not so caught up in all the craziness that's going on in the world. Another question that sometimes I'll ask is, it's just a simple one about what is the purpose? What is the purpose of my life? And after having this kind of an awakening experience, for me, that's it. It's coming home to who you always were but didn't know it. And until I experienced it, I had no idea that that was even a possibility. It's like really kind of odd in a way. It's like, but you can't know it until you've been there. But you guys know when you experience it, it's like, it's a whole nother ballgame, and it's not philosophical. It's real. I mean, consciousness, love, peace can be so tangible. And it seems like everyone's craving it and wanting it, but where are you looking for it? You know, in an outer reality, in stuff and things and whatever. But here we naturally hold it within ourselves and can access it there. One of the things that I've noticed too that helps me more than anything else is to find ways to express love in the world. One of the really remarkable opportunities I had was to go to India and do some relief work. And they needed somebody to help set up this dental program. And so I volunteered to go to India and treat what are called the Adivasi Indian people. And they're people that are native to that area around the ashram, which is this retreat site. And yet they don't have any access to any kind of care, medical care or dental care. They have so they ended up developing a relief program. They have a big bus that goes out on pretty much a daily basis to help these people, and also I happened to be on the dental van, and I can and it was really it was what we often call mash dentistry, because it was surgery, and I wasn't necessarily trained, you know, exclusive for that. I could do it, but that wasn't my training. But anyway, we'd have the patients would come into the clinic, and we would ask them, you know, where are you having difficulty, through the interpreters, and you know, they would point to some area in their mouth, and in most cases it would require an extraction. Sometimes you'd put them on an antibiotic to help clear up the infection, so then you could treat them later. But I had this one particular man that just really, I mean, I can still see his face, came in. He was an older gentleman, and we asked him through the interpreter where he was having trouble, and he started pointing around his mouth. He was pointing to like 8 or 9 teeth. And I'm going, don't think we can do that. So I asked the interpreter to ask him again, where is he having difficulty? And once again, he did the same thing. He pointed to his 8 or 9 teeth. So I set him back in the chair and examined his mouth. And sure enough, he was right. I don't know which teeth I was going to pick, because they all needed to come out. And so I literally anesthetized his entire mouth and took out all of these teeth. And when he realized we'd had him packed with gauze, and when he realized that all those teeth had come out, and he wasn't going to be feeling the pain and suffering from those teeth anymore, he was just, I mean, incredibly grateful, and his eyes were just shining. And I just remember him, you know, like this, with his arms out, and his eyes were just glistening, and he just gives me this huge big hug. Well, I'm like, no, I just lost it. I had to go outside. So I went outside, and one of the assistants, I heard him say, "Where's he going?" It's like, he's the only dentist we got. You know, and so the other one said, "Oh, he just has to go get it together, and then he'll come back, and we'll treat some more people." But it was such an enormous gift, and it's a way, I mean, I guess it's kind of like love in action. It's an opportunity to do something like that is just, I mean, talk about connect yourself back to source. It's just incredible. And people would say, well, why do you go over there and spend your time and your energy and your money? I'd say, well, try it. Try it sometime and see what your experience is like. And I would say, certainly do that if you have the opportunity, because it is incredibly gratifying, and talk about a way to reconnect to other people, but also back into your own heart. There are, very simple ways too, just on a daily basis, that you can do that, just by being open and friendly with people. Or you used to be, when you didn't have, at least when you didn't have a mask, you could, see somebody in a grocery store, or see them walking around the park, or just give them a smile or a wave or whatever. And sometimes it's like there's this transformation that happens, right in front of your eyes. It's like, wow, what's that all about? But it just seems to be, a recognition, and the fact that you value that person over there. It's amazing how they can respond, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. One other way too, I think that's really helpful, and is experiencing gratitude, or thinking about things that you're grateful for. I know that Oprah Winfrey talks about having a gratitude journal, and at one time, not long ago, she was mentioning that she was reading her gratitude journal, and this was from 1994. So, and every day she would write 5 things that she was grateful for. And I thought, oh, that's pretty remarkable that she's been doing that every day for all that time. But it certainly is a wonderful way to stay, to come back into that heart resonance, or the deeper sense of presence and who you are. So there are, many different ways to do that. I know something else that I think is really helpful is the company that you keep, and that can be the company you keep in terms of the people that you surround yourself with, or also can be, the things that the TV you watch, or the news, or don't watch the news. That's works well for me most of the time, because it's just so negative. So it doesn't support a sense of well-being. I have, certainly that one of the things that really supports me are the other light workers that I am so blessed to be around, because the energy that is a presence in that, present in them, is just incredibly inspiring. And we definitely feed off each other quite a lot, and have wonderful times together to share our experiences, and so that's a wonderful thing. Have a couple of friends at home, an older daughter and another friend that I call partners in belief, and they too are a great source of inspiration, and we often will watch videos, YouTube videos or something like that. Some particular talk or some teacher, and be inspired. And so it's like, immediately we get on the phone, or let the other one know about that, and then share those experiences. So that's another way to kind of stay in touch. And I have a lot of just short little phrases and quotes that I've memorized over the years, and those sometimes come in handy just to remind me of that deeper presence or peace, and so that's those are helpful too. I think we'll probably wrap it up here pretty soon, but one of my favorites is actually from the Tao, which is as many of you probably know, is an ancient Chinese scripture, And what it says is, be content with what you have, rejoice in the way things are. And when you do that, you realize you lack nothing and the whole world belongs to you. So truly, when we come home to that space, that place of our own divine nature, I believe that it's you can be content with what you have because you have it all. And when you have all of that, then life is just a trip. I mean, it really is. So I'd like to take some time now to answer any questions, if anybody has any questions or comments.
I just have a question about your twin brother. Like, how was he affected by your awakening? Like, was he awakened as well?
That's a great question. Yeah, he's kind of like, don't talk to me about this stuff. He had a teacher or somebody that was teaching in his school system, and he taught meditation, and he just wasn't somebody that the other teachers really gravitated to or wanted to be around. So he's just he's not on this path at all. Wonderful teacher, wonderful parent, great guy, big teddy bear. But when you start talking about spirituality, it's like, kind of like it's you can just see, it just isn't ready. It doesn't really want to do that. And but it's I find it fascinating in that regard. Your spiritual family, the people that really embrace this kind of a path, aren't necessarily the ones that are in your immediate family. I don't know what your experience is like, but it doesn't. I've been fortunate that my kids actually ended up going to this ashram and meeting this meditation master for probably 4 or 5 summers, and we would go there on our vacation. So they definitely were very interested and still are. But the same thing was for when I talk about not having a whole lot of interest, was my wife was pretty much the same thing. It was fine to support us and going for myself and the kids, but she really wasn't that interested. But that's kind of how it goes. Does that help? Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was just interested to know whose ashram you went to.
The ashram was Siddha Yoga Ashram. The master there is Gurumai Chidvilasananda is her name. There's a website if you're interested in that particular spiritual path. It's called siddhayoga.org. That's how you look it up.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah.
I just want to make a comment.
Sure.
I heard once upon a time how our human family that we were born into are the family that's going to pave the way for us to find our spiritual family and learn all the lessons that we need to learn so we can find them that we really belong to. And that's who we hang out. We have choices.
All right.
2 things. One, I'm curious the outcome of that attorney. What was the end result? What was the final verdict on that? And what changes did your family see with you after you had that awakening?
What was the final verdict on the
Attorney. The one that the
Yeah.
placed the grievance.
Right. Yeah. What actually happened is that there was a representative from the state that came back to the attorney, reviewed their policy, everything that was going on, and said that they were in full compliance. There weren't any issues. He never did hear back from the intern, so there wasn't really any resolution. But from my perspective, it was more a matter of how can I support him through the process, and that if he was coming from a different perspective, then it would be easier for him to manage that.
What changes did your family see within you after you had your awakening?
Right. Yeah, I would just a lot more relaxed, a lot more. Yeah, because I was such a perfectionist prior to that. Had to do everything absolutely perfectly, or it wasn't good enough. Just, just laughed more, enjoyed life more, and didn't take things so seriously. We're really excited about. Certainly, my kids were really excited about the fact that I had had this experience, so they wanted to, also be involved with that. So I think, yeah, and in general, they came. They had a dad that was a lot more fun to be around, and just wanted to share my to share my experience. In the worst way, it was kind of like when you certainly, if you experience anything that's very profound, you want to share it with the people you love. And so I wanted to do that in absolutely the worst way. And sometimes I almost felt like I was, pushing that too much. But I learned fairly quickly that even like with the patients in my office, I'd start, they'd ask me, what did I do last weekend? Well, I went to some, retreat or workshop. I started doing that about, every weekend. And I would notice that you could start sharing your experience, and you could just take it so far, and then pretty soon the blinds would come down. I was like, that's far enough. But they would be open to a certain. But you start to measure that rather than when I first came back from the ashram, I was like Billy Graham on steroids. It was like, yeah. You come with me, get on the bus, get on the plane, get on whatever it takes to get there, because this is the gift of a lifetime. And I absolutely was convinced of that. But people were like, whoa, it's like, what happened to this guy? Is he, get drugged up? Is it ayahuasca or what happened? So I had to kind of tone that down a little bit. Quite a lot, really. So. Yes, you're welcome. Yeah. Anyone else? Great. Love to close and bless you.